are going to go over how to draw your croquis for part 2 of our fashion illustration project. At this point, you've already created your mood board and you know who your client is going to be. So the croquis, think of it like the mannequin in the clothing store. This is a person without clothes. Yes, they are naked, but they will be the foundation that we build our clothes off of. It's going to help you in the next and final step of this project. So for today, we need a few materials. Paper to draw on. I don't have any plain drawing paper, so I'm just using an old sketchbook of mine. A pencil, a Sharpie if you have one for doing the outline at the end, and then a ruler. If you do not have a ruler of your own, there's some ways around it because we don't really need to make these 1-inch measurements, which I am going to show you, but we need to make sure that our measurements are the same. So what I mean by that is this is a 9-head croquis. This is an exaggerated form that we use in fashion illustration. It's a little bit taller and longer than people are usually in real life, but it's called a 9-head croquis because each one of these sections is the same height as 1 head width. So if I measure, each one is going to be a head height. That's why it's called a 9-head croquis. So if you do not have a ruler, we have some ways around that. So for most people, the distance between your knuckle, these 2 knuckles, is about 1 inch. So if I grab my ruler, you can see it's pretty close to 1 inch. It doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm going to use that measurement and a scrap piece of paper. For me, this is just an old card catalog that I use to kind of test out markers on. So I'm going to make sure that I'm doing this along the edge because just like a ruler, the numbers are on the edge. So I'm going to start with my top knuckle at the edge of the paper, and using my pencil, I'm going to mark where my knuckle hits. So this is my measurement. This is going to be my inch or head height. As long as you use the same measurement for each one of your boxes, you don't even need a ruler. So let's get started. We are going to draw a line down the middle to have a center of our croquis. If you have a ruler, go ahead and put that on there and draw it on. If not, you can even just fold your paper in half and you've got that line to guide you. So next, we're going to create these little spaces. That's going to tell us where to draw what items of our croquis. If you have a ruler, start a little bit off the edge of the paper because we want some space between the top of our head and the edge of our paper. So you can see my zero has moved down a little bit. And I am just taking a ruler and making a mark at every inch. Now, if you do not have a ruler, I'm going to come back and use my little card catalog measurement. You can see it's a little bit different, but what I would do is take that middle line and make a mark, move it down and line it up, make a mark, move it down, line it up, make a mark, move it down and line it up, make a mark, and keep going until you have 10 spaces. So let me finish that with the ruler. So the next thing we're going to do is create these horizontal lines to help us show where pieces will go as well. If you, again, don't have a ruler, just find something that has a straight edge. So even if it's the side of a sketchbook, you can use that as well and just line it up and make a mark with your pencil. So let me go ahead and do those now, and then we'll move on. So now that I have the horizontal lines drawn, I'm going to come back in and label each space. Now, you can see over here I have some notes on where things go. So I'm going to put those notes in a document for you so that you can see it as you are drawing as well. The first thing we're going to draw is going to be our head. We're going to kind of start from the top, go to the toes, And we're actually going to do our arms last. So we'll have a mannequin without arms for a moment. When we're drawing our head, we want it to take up this entire space. Your head, think of it like an upside down egg. It's a little bit rounder at the top and then a little bit skinnier at the bottom. Once you have your head drawn, you're going to come in and do the necklines. These are almost like parentheses, but facing inward. So your neck is going to go about a third of the way down. So I'm going to just draw a super light line right here. And in my notes, I'm going to put a third is the neck. Now, we don't want to start our neck all the way up here. I'm going to come down a little bit and just kind of curve it down until I meet that line. The next thing is going to be your shoulders. Now, if we take the width of your head, it is going to be almost like if we took a head and put it right here and right here with a little bit of extra space. So whatever this distance is, I'm going to even just measure it with my fingers. I'm putting this towards the center. So I took this. This is how wide my head is. I moved it over so that one edge is at the center line. And that's going to be about where my shoulders will end. Except for it's going to be about halfway in that space. So it's actually going to be right down here. So your shoulders are a half. I'm going to use the same measurement, so I'm not even using my ruler. I could if I wanted to. Now I'm going to take that measurement and bring it to the other side to show me where my shoulders will end on that side. That way they're pretty symmetrical. When I draw my shoulders, they are not just a straight flat line. They do curve out. You have to think about the muscles in your body. So think you have your trapezius right here. We want to make sure that it looks realistic. So instead of a straight line, we're going to have our shoulders slope outward till it meets that point. So we've got the start. The next thing is the apex or the bust. So that's the line between 2 and 3. So right on that line, I'm going to write apex or bust. Now this is kind of where your armpits are. So if we take a look, our armpits are going to be just a little bit in from where our shoulders are. So for right now, I'm just going to make a little mark just a ways in, and we're going to come back and continue that in just a moment. Now the line between 3 and 4, that is your waist, which is the skinniest part of your torso. That's where it goes in the most. Now, this is a fashion illustration, so sometimes these proportions are exaggerated. They aren't necessarily people in real life, in real bodies. So in fashion illustrations, usually whatever the width of your head is going to be the width of your waist, which seems ridiculously small. So you are more than welcome to do that, but I'm going to make mine a little bit more realistic. So if I make a line straight down from my head, I feel like that would be super skinny. I'm going to move mine out a bit, and that is going to be my waist. I now can connect my my armpit line to my waist. A third of the way down. So about here. A third, that's where your hips are. Now your hips are going to be the widest part. So in general, you want to make your hips about line up with the outside of your shoulder. So I'm going to make just a little light guideline going straight down. So I can come out. Now if I connect my hips to the line between 4 and 5, that is going to give me the bottom of my torso. Now if I was designing a swimsuit or something like that, it'd be important to have that line, but most of us won't need it. The next thing is going to be, let me write that out for you, end of torso is between 4 and 5. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to come all the way down here between 6 and 7, and we are going to draw our knees. Now, your knees are going to be just little ovals or circles that are somewhat the same size with about the same size in between. So let's pretend there's 3 of them. That third one we're not going to see. We are going to take the line from our hips and we are going to curve it down to meet the outside of our knees. Now, if you're drawing someone who's very athletic, you can add in muscles into any of these spaces and make them look a little bit bigger. We just curve it down. It's almost a straight line with just a little bit of a curve. For the inside of the leg, which when you're designing, it's also called the inseam, we are going to take the inside of the knee and connect it back up to the end of our torso. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to come in and we are going to draw the ankles. Now the ankles are going to be circles or oval just like the knee. They're going to be directly below, but a little bit smaller. Now you can see here that I have that 2/3 of the way in the 7 box is the widest part of the calf or the leg muscle. So you want to make sure that you don't just make a straight line down. You want to give it just a little bit of curve when it gets to that point. Okay, the next thing we have is our feet. So I like to just draw the feet like little squares almost, or rectangles rather. Think of like a cartoon sock. It doesn't have to be perfect. I usually just make a little rounded piece for the heel at the back. If you want to showcase the side of a shoe, say that your shoes are going to be a major piece of your clothing design, you can also have the foot look like it's off to the side. So to do that, I still slope it down just a little bit. But then that way, if you have a design on the inside of the shoe or you want it to look a little bit more athletic, you can do that. If you wanted a heel, you might want to draw your foot in either one of these positions to kind of showcase what your shoe will be. So keep that in mind as you're drawing your foot. So we need now to come back up to the top and finish with our arms. So when we're looking at where our arms are, we have this straight line down from our shoulder. That straight line is going to be the inside of the elbow. Your elbow and your waist are at the same spot between 3 and 4. So you can even right now check. If you put your arm to your side, your elbow and your waist, the skinniest part of your torso, are about the same place. So on the outside of this little line from my shoulder, I'm going to make a circle for my elbow. The next spot is going to be the space between 4 and 5. That not only is the end of your torso, but it is also your wrist. So following kind of the same model that I did between the knees and the ankles, I'm going to again draw a circle for my wrist, except for it is going to be a bit smaller. So now we just need to connect the inside and the outside pieces for the upper and the lower arm. Off the shoulder, you are going to curve your arm a little bit to meet the outside of the circle for your elbow. So depending again on how muscular your person is, you can change this line according to what body type you are designing for. For the inside of the arm, I'm going to take the inside of that circle and connect it right back up to the line between 2 and 4, which was called your apex or your bust. Coming down for the bottom part of the arm, I'm going to just kind of curve, just really slight curves on these pieces. And now we have to draw hands. Don't be afraid of the hands. About 2/3 of the way down. So 2/3. That is your fingertips. So we have between our wrist and this line to create a hand. I like to make them really, really boxy. Think about like mittens. So I first kind of just make a little L shape. Make a little rectangle for a thumb without a closed top. And just kind of finish it off. It can kind of look like a little Lego hand if you want to, unless you are drawing something like gloves or a bunch of jewelry, like rings and things on the hands. It's okay if they're a little bit off. Now is the point that you are going to come back in and take some time to look at it as a whole. I can see some things that I'm not really liking so far, like the shape of the arms. Maybe my legs are a little bit too skinny. I'm going to take a look at the whole thing and make a few changes before I do my pen or my Sharpie outline. Okay, so I'm back. I've taken some time to adjust some of my lines, and then I outlined what I wanted to keep in Sharpie. Again, if you don't have Sharpie, use a dark colored marker or even make your lines extra dark. So when you are done drawing your croquis, please take a photograph and upload it to your discussion board. I'm excited to see what they look like. Let me know if you have any questions or you need some help. Bye, class.